Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Edupedia world, and I am Abhinay Gupta. So today we'll start a fresh new topic from the Allied Law section. Right? We'll start a new chapter, that is the Competition Act 2002. This is a very simple chapter, right? And if you ask me about the coverage in your examination, then on an average you have a 4-mark question from this chapter. And that basically is either the definition or section 3, section 5, or there are a couple of sections 8, 9, 15, 10, 12 which are important and from where you have direct questions in the examination, right? Or basically you may be asked to write definitions. So before this we have completed a chapter that is SARFAESI, Securitization and Reconstruction of Financial Asset and Enforcement of Security Interest Act. Right. So over there in that chapter we have seen that yes, that chapter contains definitions that are asked in the examinations, right? And this is the other chapter in Allied Law from where definitions are being asked in your examination. So if you go by the trend, it is either a definition from SARFAESI or a definition from Competition Act that is present in your question paper, right? So this is not a very difficult chapter, right? Because if you understand the sections, if you understand the definition, it's just about understanding it once. It seeps into your mind automatically because you know what is right, and basically all the powers over here are with the central government. So you don't have any other authorities interfering, you don't have any specific provisions, any limits, any rules, regulations to memorize. Like you have very little, not to the great extent like SEBI and stuff where you have a lot to learn, like in FEMA. Your capital account transaction, current account transaction, you have a lot to learn over there. So comparatively, Competition Act is one chapter where if you go through the class very well, it will be enough for you to attempt your question in the examination. But if you want full marks in the examination, you will have to mug up a little bit of definitions and you will have to go through the provisions of the sections that I will tell you. Right? So because this chapter is important, right? You have a 4-mark question, but the provisions of the sections contained in this chapter are not very important, right? Like the majority of them. So there are some important sections from where you have been asked questions in your exams repeatedly, and those are the particular sections from where you have questions in your practice manual as well. And the other sections which are given in the chapter in your course, in your curriculum, but you don't have a question based on those sections either in your practice manual or in your past 10 years examinations or anywhere. Right? You may not get questions, you may not get content. If you go ahead to read question and answers from somewhere, you may not get questions on those sections because those are not very important, right? But we'll make an attempt. If time allows us, we'll cover those sections as well. Otherwise, my attempt in this class would be that the definitions that are important from this chapter are deep into your head, along with the provisions of those sections that are important and on which you have been asked questions in your examination, and the reference of which is given in your practice manuals as well, right? So you can expect that there is 99.95% of chance that you get the question from the topics that I will ask you to tick in your book at the end of the lecture, at the end of the entire chapter, right? I won't go with it in the initial, because then you will not go through the other sections that I will be teaching, right? That is the general mentality of the students. So to start with, first of all, we would like to understand what competition is, right? We would start with the introduction. So what do you mean by competition? Each one of you have entered into a lot of competitions throughout your life. If you refer to it in your school days, you must have entered into a competition in your class for the ranking, for the marks, on your sports day, on your social cultural events, and everywhere. Your elocution contest, your drawing competition, all these are competition where you have to struggle to win. You have to stand out. There are rankings, right? You will have to outperform to win, outperform the others who are a part of the competition. Then after your schools also, you had a competition of entering the college, you had a competition in your CPT, you had a competition for your IPCC, and now you're competing for your CA final. You're competing with other students, you're competing to get into that 5-7% result, right? All these are competition. But what is the kind of competition that we are concerned with in the Competition Act 2002 is basically the competition in the market. We will be dealing with the economic rivalry between the market players. The economic rivalry is the crux of this chapter. We are not concerned with other competitions prevailing in our day-to-day life. Right? So what is the kind of competition that you have in your economic market? If you take an example, then talk about the brands of the cars. May it be on high end, may it be on the low end. On the low end also, your Honda, Hyundai, they are competing with each other, having the same range of cars and trying to attract the customers. It's a competition. They want their market share. On the higher range, you go to the BMW, Audi, over there they have the competition. Right? You have a competition from Puma, from Reebok to Adidas. You have competition everywhere, even if you consider the economic market. Right? But now, if some players, some market players, they want to stand out, they want to outperform the other competitors in the market, what do? Now, if the players want to survive, wants to sustain in the market, then they will have to outperform in the competition. Now, there are two basic ways of how they can outperform. One is the fair way, the fair mean to sustain the competition and win, and then the other thing is the unfair mean. Right? So, if we talk about the fair mean, then what is the fair mean that any particular market player can use? Right? So, if we talk about two competitors, for example, say in the mobile phone industry. So, suppose we have LG and Motorola. Right? They are into a competition to grab the market. Now, they are coming up with new phones in all the ranges, high end, the smartphones, the bar phones and everything. Right? So, if LG wants to outperform the market, if they want to gain the market, they have other competitors also like Samsung, iPhone, right? So if they want to outperform in the market, they should come up with a new mobile and they should bring in innovative features in that, right? They can improve their quality, they can improve the performance, right? They can improve the cost effectiveness, they can give a lot of values, a lot of additions, a lot of features in the phone at an effective cost. Right? They can target a particular segment of the section. They can customize the phone accordingly. So these are the various fair mean of how you actually advance, how you play fair, how you develop and you win the competition. Right? And the other way is the unfair mean. Then you may adopt a lot of unfair mean, right? Like predatory pricing. Now, what is a predatory pricing? In predatory pricing, one market player, what will they do is they would roll out the product into the market at a price which is lower than their cost. Right? So other competitors in the market, they are not able to sell below a certain price because they have a cost involved and they have a profit margin. Even if they outdo with the profit margin, they have a cost involved. They want to recover their cost. So that is the minimum price they can set. Now, if this market player, if this player in the market is not able to provide a cost-effective product, right, is not able to minimize the cost or bring the cost lower to the cost of the competitor, then what can they do is they can sell it off at a lower price. What will happen with that is they would lose out a profit in the beginning. They would make some loss, they would gain some loss, but slowly and silently all the customers will shift to them. Right? For example, if you have 5-10 shops in your locality, grocery shop, and one of them starts selling their product at a concessional rate, predatory pricing, below their cost, very cheap. So what do the people in the locality do is that they start shifting to that person, to that specific grocery shop and leave the rest. Although it is bearing some loss, it is not gaining profit in the beginning, but slowly, silently, the other players in the market will not be able to survive. They will not sustain in the market. And hence, they would move out of the market. They would roll out. And the day the other players are rolling out of the market, this grocery store is gaining the monopoly power. And once it gains the monopoly power, what will it do? As simple, it can charge any rate it wants. Right? So the bigger competition if you see today is the Uber and Ola. Right? What are they doing? They are giving out their cab services at a price which is lower than their cost. They are paying a lot more to the drivers, right, for the car they are hiring, but still they are charging less from you And what are they doing? How are they bearing the cost? They have investors who are investing money, who are putting in money into the business, and then they are going ahead to push that money into the market and to gain customers. What are their objectives? That the maximum number of people start using the Ola app or the Uber app, right? They start booking from there, they become the regular customer, and the other player in the market, right? The Mega Cab, the Meru, and the other players like Ola and Uber, one of them also, they move out of the market because they won't be able to sustain the competition, because they are not able to give that service at that price. And every customer who is traveling, right, will take the cheapest cab. If you get a good quality cab, if you are getting good service at a cheaper rate, you'll go for that, obviously. And the other players who are not able to sustain will move out of the market. That is the time when they will gain monopoly and they can increase their rate, and you have no other player in the market. You will have to take that cab, right? So that is an unfair mean. The other example is like abuse of your dominant position, tight selling. That okay, there is a supplier and he says that if you want to take my product, then you will have to sell only my product. You cannot sell any other competitor, right? So these are some unfair means that are in the market, right, to rule out the competition. So our Competition Act is basically framed to put a check, to put a control on these unfair means and promote the fair practice of competition in the market, right? So basically before moving towards the Competition Act, there is this Competition Act. If you see, the act was actually enacted in the year 2002. But what about the scenario before 2002? Didn't we have any Competition Act at that point of time? Didn't we have any curb on these antisocial elements, or the people or the market players who are following the unfair mean in the market? Didn't we have any safeguard for the fair players? We did. We had the MRTP Act 1969. What does MRTP stand for? Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices. Right? So back in 1969 they had this act MRTP, which is now actually moved on, which is now converted, which has taken a new shape, which is the Competition Act 2002. Right? So basically, why is the Competition Act enacted? Is it framed to remove the competition from the market? No, it is framed actually to remove the unfair practices in the market, because you need competition in the market, right? Because when you have competition, that is when you increase your economic performance, and that is good for all, right? Everybody needs a perfectly competitive market, right? So the MRTP Act was framed with certain objectives, right? So what was the objective behind the MRTP Act? We would see the objective first. So before the objective, will be done with the background. So the Act came into force on 1st June 1970. The Act was framed in 1969 and it came into force on 1st June 1970, right? And this Act aims to prevent the concentration of economic power and provide for control of monopolies and protect the consumer interest. So ultimately, the final person who needs to be saved from this competition, from the negative impact of the competition, is the consumers, right? So are you getting the feel of why we have this Competition Act? Okay, so now we'll move on to see the objective of MRTP. So we have four basic objectives of the MRTP Act, or to say we had four basic objectives of the MRTP Act. So that was, first, the prevention of concentration of economic powers. We don't want the economic power to be concentrated in one or two market players, right? Then the prohibition of monopolistic trade practices, prohibition of restrictive trade practices, and prohibition of unfair trade practices. So these were the four basic objectives behind the MRTP Act, right? These make sense. Now we'll go on to explain what these objectives are. So what did MRTP Act do to actually prevent the concentration of economic power in some market players, in the hands of some market players, right? So what they saw basically is that undertaking which have a sizable share of the market, right, they were known as dominant undertaking. And if any dominant undertaking at any point of time had its assets more than rupees 1 crore, we would consider it to be an MRTP undertaking. Right? So there was a classification of the undertaking. If the undertaking is of a sizable, holds a sizable share of the market, that means holds more than 25% of the total production or the installed capacity of the market, then they were known as dominant undertaking. For example, if the mobile phone market, if you consider all the mobile phones in the market to be 100%, then for example, if you consider that Samsung holds 30% of the market share of the mobile market, then Samsung would be considered to be a sizable, to be a market player with a sizable share of market, right? And so we would consider it to be a dominant undertaking. So that is just an hypothetical example, right? So Samsung is known as the dominant undertaking, and if you see that the Samsung has the total assets of over 1 crore, which is obvious, right? Then Samsung would also be considered as MRTP undertaking, right? Then what is the restriction? How did they restrict the economic powers of Samsung? So the act says that if the undertaking is considered as MRTP undertaking, right, then they will not be able to expand their undertaking without the approval of the central government. So all the undertakings that fall under the category of MRTP undertaking, they will have to seek the permission of central government before expansion, right? So that is how they they prevented the concentration of economic power in one hand, because if Samsung goes on to expand, right, and eats up the entire market, it goes from 30 to 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, then the other companies, the other players in the market, the LG, Motorola, Spice, whatever other companies, they would be ruled out, right? And then Samsung would gain a monopoly position, and then it would do whatever it wanted to do. It could raise the price to any level, and the consumers would be the people suffering at the end. So this was one step to curb the negative impact of competition, right? So I hope that is clear with you. Now we'll see what steps did the MRTP Act take to actually prohibit the monopolistic trade practice in the market. So first we need to understand what monopoly is, right? So monopoly is a situation where there is a single supplier, a single buyer, or a single distributor, a single wholesaler, a single manufacturer. Wherever there is any single player in any kind of market, we will call it to be a monopoly market, right? That means there is no competition at all. So whatever that monopolistic party, that monopolistic player wants to do, they can do. If they degrade the quality of the product, we still have to buy because there is no other seller in the market. If they inflate the price, we'll still have to buy because there is no other player in the market, right? And if they are the consumers, if they are the distributors, then the retailers would not be able to take the sample from any other player because there is none. So whatever rate they quote, whatever margin they give to the retailer have to buy it, right? So that is a situation where the others in the market suffer, because once any player gains a monopolistic power, right, they use unfair means. They do not allow other competitions to come in, right? And the consumers are basically suffering because of that, because now they do whatever they wish, right? So basically the monopolistic situation is not the only one where there's a single buyer, a single trader, or a single distributor, right? There can be other situation of monopoly as well. For example, if you have 4 to 5 players in the market, right? So it is going perfectly well, it is going competitive, but then 2 or 3 of them decide that let us come together, right? We will help each other out and rule the other 2 out of the market, right? So what will they do is they will form a cartel, right? A cartel is a group. So they will form a group, and then they would bring out some or the other policy of their own, right? And try to negatively impact the other players, right? They would force the other player to move out of the market because they are not able to face the competition, because these 3 have joined hands already, right? They have taken the entire market share. So the other 2 individually who are fighting these 3 people are not able to survive. So they move out of the market, and then these three, they form that cartel. Okay, this is my share of market, this is my share of market, let us increase the price, let us decrease the value, let us do this, let us get into this market, let us prevent this person from getting into the market. Whatever they want, they can do. Even that is a monopoly structure, right? So to put a curb on these practices, an MRTP commission was established, right? Similar commission you will see in your Competition Act also, and you have the similar function, right? So why we are doing the MRTP is to get the background of how did this Competition Act come into force. So an MRTP commission was established at that point of time. What did they do is that they would investigate and inquire into the matter as to what is happening into the market, right? And if they find that no, there is a monopolistic trade practice going on in the market, which is adversely affecting the market, which is adversely impacting the consumers, right, then they would forward the report of the entire study on those monopolistic trade practices and forward it to the central government. And then it is the discretion of central government, it is in the hands of central government to take action against these monopolistic practices, right? And the third one you have is the prohibition on restrictive trade practices, right? So what is a restrictive trade practice? Restrictive trade practice is basically a practice where you restrict the others with whom you are dealing. For example, a supplier or your consumer or anybody, right? You restrict them to use your single product, or you restrict them in any other way also. For example, in the beginning when we studied about the tight selling, right? What did they do is that if you want to sell my product, if you want my distributorship, then I have one condition with it, that you will distribute only my product. That is restrictive trade practice. That I am imposing a restriction on that distributor, that distributor will not be able to distribute any other product. Hence the other market players will not be able to penetrate into the market because the distributors have been restricted. So that is tight selling, right? So in this case also the MRTP commission would be involved, but they would not forward the report to the central government because this is not a very crucial issue, right? The entire market is not impacted. There is no monopoly condition established so far. The only problem over here is that the market player is trying to get into a restrictive trade practice. They are trying to restrict the market, right? So if anybody is entering into such an attempt which is going to have an adverse effect on the economy, then the MRTP commission would investigate, and if they feel that no, something has to be done about this, then they would take action, right? So in this case the orders would also be passed by the MRTP commission itself. They would not be forwarded to the central government because that is not such big an issue, right? Last one we have is the prohibition on unfair trade practice. So unfair trade practice is basically the residual. So apart from monopoly, apart from restrictive, apart from the concentration of economic power, if there is any other unfair practice, then it has a general category under unfair trade practices, right? So if there are any other unfair trade practices that are not as major as monopolistic or concentration of economic power, then all those practices will be looked after by the MRTP commission itself. So they would inquire, they would investigate, and they would pass order as they used to do in the restrictive trade practice, right? So this is what actually happened. So this is how the MRTP commission used to regulate the competition market, how they used to actually support the consumers. They would look after their needs, they would save the market from a negative or adverse impact, right? So this entire MRTP Act went into a lot of amendments, right? In the 1974, 80, 82, 84, 86, 91 and so on. It went on a lot of amendments because as per the requirement of the market, they had to introduce something new. Because the market players, the players in the market, the economic players, they are very shrewd people. So they always used to find a loophole, and they always used to find something new to get into an unfair practice, right? So the MRTP Act had to be amended time to time to curb those new impacts on the market. So finally, with the progressive amendment, one fine day, the MRTP Act was submerged, and what we had is the Competition Act 2002. right? You also have a Consumer Protection Act, right? Even that somewhere or the other is similar to the Competition Act, but the Competition Act actually has a very wider scope than the Consumer Protection Act, right? So there the birth of the Competition Act 2002 took place, right? So the short title of it would be the Competition Act 2002. That is how we would call it, right? And that would extend to the whole of India except the state of Jammu and Kashmir. So any kind of competition that is taking place in the country between any market players, right? So we are talking about any economic rivalry between any market player, if that is taking place in India, within the boundaries of India except the Jammu and Kashmir state, right? Then that would be covered under the Competition Act. That means the Competition Act would interfere, right? They had the power, they had the authority to get into such matters, right? And then try to bring out the harmony in the market, right? So that is an attempt. But now the market is going global, right? You have a high rate of globalization. You have multinational companies coming in. You have our Indian firms going out, Indian companies going out, establishing branch and subsidiaries in other countries as well. So keeping that in mind, a concept of extraterritorial jurisdiction was also involved in this act. So the act now extends beyond the boundaries also, right? So if outside the boundaries of the country, outside the boundary of India, if there is any agreement that adversely affect the market in India, that adversely affect the competition market in India, then that would also be covered under the Competition Act. That would be covered under the jurisdiction of the Competition Act 2002, right? And the commencements of various provisions, various sections of the Act would be as per the notification given in the official Gazette. So that was all about the introduction to the Competition Act. Now I think you people have started to get the feel of the Competition Act, right? You are getting into the direction or into the way, into the style that we will be talking about, right? You are getting the feel. Now you will start syncing the chapter, the definitions, the provisions when we start with it. So the background will be enough for the lecture today. We'll pick up the definitions in the next lecture. So until then, this is Abhinay Gupta signing off. Thank you. Bye-bye.